The number one thing that's holding you back in your interactions with women is your social anxiety. You're missing out on opportunities, unique experiences, and beautiful women because of it. And the longer you go without doing anything about it, the harder it becomes to resolve. I'm going to be teaching you a very simple method for helping you get rid of your social anxiety forever. It's a method that I developed that has not only worked well for me, but for many of my students as well. And because this method is based primarily in evolutionary psychology, it is guaranteed to work for just about anyone as long as the steps are followed strictly. So pay very close attention to each step of this entire process. But before we do that, we have to discuss what social anxiety actually is and where it comes from. And in order to do that, we must first understand another concept, the social contract. So let's go. The social contract is a silent, non-verbal agreement that every member of society has unconsciously agreed to in order to keep being a member of society. Think of the social contract as an agreed upon code of conducts that we use as human beings to interact with each other. I personally credit the inception of the social contract as not just the end of the barbaric caveman era, but the beginning of human civilization. And the reason is simple. The social contract and the creation of it is essentially the whole reason human beings began to cooperate with each other in a non-violent way, at least for the most part. For the first time in human history, it forced us to behave in ways that were beneficial to us long term. Which means consequentially, it also forced us to behave in ways that were beneficial to other people long term. We really do owe our modern civilization as it stands right now to the social contract. All our infrastructure and amazing modern technology would not even be possible without it. It's the foundation of all our modern laws and human rights. It's the whole reason we trust each other to not crash into each other while driving these heavy metal death machines alongside each other that we call cars. And even our dating and mate selection interactions have become a lot less violent because of it, so I'd say that's a plus. Now, you're probably wondering, the social contract sounds good and all, but what does this have to do with social anxiety? Well, now we have to look at the other side of the social contract, the negative aspect of it. You see, the social contract might have its benefits, but it's held up primarily by negative reinforcement. Since on an evolutionary level, human beings are primarily a cooperative species that increase your chances of survival by cooperating with each other, the chances of survival for a human that cannot gain the cooperation of others significantly dwindles. So the fear of being ostracized by and kicked out of the tribe is a genetic trait that has been passed down to us by our ancestors. This innate fear of being rejected by the group, the collective, or the tribe is exactly what holds up the social contract. Because in order for anyone to keep being a member of society and continue to enjoy the benefits of that, aka increase in their chances of survival, they have to keep to a specific code of conducts. They must behave in a specific way that is acceptable by the larger collective. And this is innately unnatural to us as a species, so much so that we have to be operantly conditioned into it. In fact, our indoctrination usually begins at a very young age. Pay close attention. When you were a child, you were the epitome of unstifled freedom. You did what came natural to you, you said whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, and you were completely aligned with your instincts. But slowly over time, your parent or guardian began to place psychological boundaries of limitation around you. They began to take away your freedom little by little until you were left with nothing but a handful of acceptable behaviors. And they did it, unbeknownst to them, as a way to unconsciously indoctrinate you into signing the social contract. And again, they weren't being malicious when they did this. They really thought they were teaching you how to behave yourself correctly. Take, for example, when you were a toddler and your parents decided to take you to the grocery store. You may not remember this right now, but I bet you at least on one of those occasions you weren't the most well-behaved toddler. You probably had a screaming tantrum because you wanted candy or some kind of snack and your parent told you no. And guess what? You weren't wrong for having that tantrum. In fact, you were in complete alignment with your instincts. The problem is you were having that screaming tantrum in the middle of a public place. As far as the social contract goes, accommodating a screaming toddler is not within the realms of acceptable behavior. So in order to avert the judging eyes and save themselves embarrassment in their minds, your parents had to make sure that you stopped crying. And more than likely they did it in a number of ways, including offering you a bribe or more than likely just straight up punishing your bad behavior. And just like that, that was the beginning of getting you to conform to the social contract. You went through a few more years of schooling where even more of your behaviors and freedom was taken away from you. And before you know it, you two are now a full-fledged adult member of society who is now completely in alignment with the social contract. That is the origin of your social anxiety. It was strategically placed in you from a young age because you signed the social contract and were scared of the consequences of not aligning yourself with it. The problem is that as an adult, no one ever told you that you didn't need to keep renewing this contract. Until now. So you're welcome. You may not even realize it, but I just gave you undeniable proof that what you call your social anxiety isn't even real. It doesn't come natural to you. Your social anxiety is really just a psychological manifestation of your fear of breaking social decorum. You don't want to stand out or stick out like a sore thumb because mentally you've associated that with getting rejected by your tribe or by the collective. But ironically, that fear of being rejected by the collective is exactly why you're missing out on so many opportunities. Because the only way for you to experience the things you want to experience is to do things a lot differently than everyone else within the collective does. So now we've come to the $1,000,000 question. How do we cleanse ourselves of this fear of getting rejected by the collective? How can we move through the world without placing so much value on what others think about us? How can we improve our confidence in our own ability to increase our chances of survival with or without the cooperation of others? Well, over the years, I've developed a very simple 3-step process. Follow me. The first step is, well, what we just did. Understand the origins of social anxiety. Fear is the language of the unknown. What we don't know, we are scared of. Once we have understanding and enlightenment, though, it's hard for the fear to remain. So just knowing the fact that the social anxiety you feel is not real is already a massive step in the right direction. It kind of feels stupid to keep being scared of something when you know that that fear you feel was indoctrinated into you from a young age, right? The second step is to test boundaries relentlessly. Go out of your way to do things in public that would be seen as unacceptable behavior. Or at the very least, behavior that you believe would be out of the norm, especially for you. You can say inappropriate things, make controversial jokes, sing off key out loud, lie down in places you shouldn't be lying down in, you name it. You can even walk around with no shirt or an inappropriate shirt or just do push-ups for no reason in public. You do whatever you want. Frankly, the more ridiculous the better, so go big or go home. And that brings me to my final step. Observe your environment around you and the people within it. Seriously, either while you're doing what you're doing or right after you're done, look around you to see what's actually going on. What you'll notice is something that everyone that usually goes through this process for the first time is shocked by. Nobody gives a fuck. The vast majority of people are far more concerned with following within the guidelines of the social contract than they are with policing you. And even for those that are concerned with policing you, they'll never do it to your face. They'll only silently judge in their minds. Once you find out for yourself that there is no actual negative consequence for not behaving yourself, social anxiety will never be a problem for you ever again. I give you my word, once you see behind that curtain, you will never go back. I have a bunch more detailed exercises you can do to rid yourself of your anxiety in my free course called Self-Belief. You can just hit this link over here and go check it out. It's been Jason, favorite scientist. Do with all this information what you must.